Amy Roloff cried as she shared a painful moment from her childhood that affected her marriage to Chris Marek. A recent episode of Little People Big World show Amy debates with her husband Chris over where to plant her new garden. While discussing the plan, Chris says to his wife, "I thought it was clear." But Amy replies, "No, don't assume that. It wasn't clear to me." As she pointed out where her garden would be, she continued, "We're looking at this differently, and words and comprehension is different." He tried to cut the argument short, but Amy turned to him and said, "Well, just be patient. So what if I didn't get it?" In the confessional, Chris says, "In my mind, I feel like I'm explaining it very well, very logically, and it makes sense. No argument needed, and sometimes I get a little frustrated because Amy's not catching on." When Chris emphasizes how much he needs to explain things to Amy, he makes it worse. Amy says, "See, we can still work together, babe," while at the garden site, and Marek replies, "I just have to hammer it out." Amy says, "You can't think about it like that." Chris then clarifies, "That's a business term. It's an expression," adding, "Don't get so offended." Amy then admitted, "I am sensitive to that. You're right. I think it has a lot to do with trying to be so careful about my image and how people look at me throughout my whole life." She added, "Because all it takes is one little thing and poof, you're dismissed." During her own confession, Amy admits that Chris may say something innocent, but to her, it is, "What are you doing?" The reality star also said that she has a tendency to be overly sensitive because while growing up, she tried to live up to other people's expectations. Those elements, I know, definitely came into my marriage with Matt. There was a lot where I didn't feel as supported or encouraged, and when you have that a little bit over time, it can deflate you. Later, when Chris and Amy discussed their argument, he admits that early on in their relationship, he had to push her to talk about certain things. Amy then says, "I think part of me struggled internally. I was also afraid that if I didn't say something right, he'd be walking out the door." The camera then shows Amy struggling with tears as she openly talks about her childhood. "There are moments that go back to my childhood. I'm just glad he thinks I'm good enough," Amy says. Chris then leaned over to his wife and whispered, "More than good enough."